Hi, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marissa Kozlov. Welcome to today's eMarketer Tech Talk webinar, where we host guest speakers from all areas of media, ad tech, and MarTech. Today's topic will focus on holiday preparedness, strategies for success, and what brands selling on Amazon can expect for this year's busy shopping season. So before we get to that great topic, I'm going to introduce my two guests from Feedvisor. The first is Danny Nadel, President and COO, who is in Vermont today. Hi, Danny.
Hi, Marissa. Thank you for having us.
Great to have you here. And we also have Andrew Alterson, General Manager of Enterprise Brands, who's in New Jersey. Hi, Andrew.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Great to have both of you here today, and we are so looking forward to today's presentation. And we're also thrilled to have all of you in our audience in attendance. This is your opportunity to learn. So in addition to taking in all of the great information, don't hesitate to ask questions. Danny and Andrew will be participating in a live Q&A in the second part of today's webinar. I'll do my best to get to as many questions as we can, so please keep those coming for any questions that you have for our two presenters today. So now, time to get started. Danny, over to you.
Thank you, Marissa. Okay, let me start by running through the agenda we have planned. First, we're going to set the stage by reviewing some of the key areas of influence for 2021 holiday and how they lead to our projections for Q4 Amazon growth. And then Andrew and I are going to dive into the key factors and tips that brands and retailers need to consider when preparing your Q4 strategies. And this is really important because we anticipate the 2021 holiday season is going to be another unprecedented one for e-commerce retailers, and Amazon is going to continue to dominate. Last year, I think, Amazon and its merchants benefited from a tremendous shift in consumer behavior. It was a breakout year, largely driven by the pandemic. Amazon's earnings, Q4 2020 sales showed an increase of 42% year over year. And it was the leading brands and retailers in categories such as beauty and personal care, electronics, grocery, who were the biggest beneficiaries of this shift in behavior. Brands surveyed as well as Feedvisor customers similarly experienced 30 to 43% growth in Q4 versus those pre-COVID benchmarks. But I don't think any of us quite knew what to expect for 2021. And while brick and mortar stores reopened this year, we've seen the COVID tailwinds fuel continued growth of e-commerce. According to the Department of Commerce, Q1 of 21 e-commerce sales were up 39.1% year over year, while total retail sales increased only 16.8% during the same period. And already in Q1 of 21, Amazon saw 41% growth year over year, which is huge. And we expect that growth halo to continue. Our analysts are projecting accelerated growth in the second half of this year versus Q1, and that growth by Q4 can be anywhere from 48.5%, assuming existing market conditions, to a high of 58.5% growth versus Q1 of this year, which, as we already said, is increased versus last year. As further reinforcement to this, recent announcements are very telling. Walmart, Target, Best Buy, they're all closing for Thanksgiving Day once again. And these new COVID variant strains add another variable to the equation of what's going to be. All told, this leads us to believe that there's going to be a growth rate of 25 to 35% year over year, Q4 to Q4, with a high of 40% if retail becomes more restricted. And so the question really for today's conversation is, are you ready to capitalize on this huge growth? And so Andrew's going to cover the first tip on how you start to think about getting prepared.
Thank you. So the first tip is pretty obvious and really important, and probably the most important, which is start planning now. We only have about 4 months between now and what, as Danny put it, will probably be the biggest Q4 holiday season in history, especially for e-commerce. So there is no time like the present. And if you haven't already gotten started, then start tomorrow. What does that mean? Obviously you need to build a game plan, figure out what those priorities are going to be, start thinking about the products, the ASINs, the deals, the targets, the budgets. Important, for those who did run a Prime Day in 21, or obviously a holiday in 2020, there are learnings you should harvest. We learned a lot over the last Prime Day for our clients, and we would highly recommend that starts to inform your plan. But it is all about prepare. Easy to say, a lot to do. Start planning out those promotions and pricing. We're going to talk about that more in a minute. You need to start testing and learning what is working, what is not for you and your products. Content, getting it right and having it all ready to go starts immediately, from PDPs to brand store to ads, all that need to be optimized. And then the campaigns that you're going to need to run. We're going to talk about advertising, but you need to start now, build out those performer models, run scenarios to figure out exactly what those budgets can and should be. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be competitive. So we recommend that, like I said, get started now. This is a framework we use for many of our clients. It's a whole nother webinar around power KPIs and really focusing on visibility and conversion. But it also serves as a useful checklist of what to plan for and think about as you start to get ready for the holidays. So if you look at this whole kind of list on the left here, they are all the items that you need to start checking through and getting prepared for, from everything that you need to do to maximize organic share of voice and clearly paid media, to content, to reviews, pricing, inventory, etc. So recommendation number one, tip number one is start tomorrow.
Talking about inventory, you can't sell if you don't have product to sell. That's the key thing we have to cover. And there's a lot in this section that matters. The first area of focus is going to be on supply chain. And the big theme here is you must anticipate issues, because this year is going to be an interesting one, much like last year. The very first thing you have to do is project your expected holiday demand. You want to analyze previous events. As Andrew said, you've got to look at your performance. You have Q4 holiday results from last year, recent Prime Day results, analyze your performance, look at your current trends, and add a buffer of 20% or so for non-seasonal items to help understand what does that demand look like. And then very importantly, actually most importantly, you want to ensure your inventory arrives to Amazon. And you want to make sure that you're replenishing routinely to ensure you're staying in stock as that demand increases. I would say allow something like 3 to 4 week lead times now with Amazon during Q4. And many of our customers selling everything from toys to phones to computer equipment in the US and Europe expect weeks-long delays due to these shipping bottlenecks. They're already starting to place their orders now to be prepared. So the message, as Andrew said, is start planning now. And as you budget with the understanding that there is increases in shipping costs and tariffs. And these costs are not trivial. What was $6,000 to $8,000 for a container last year is now $17,000 plus. So you have to budget for these higher freight costs, especially when you're sourcing from China. And as a result of all of this, you need to put an emphasis on importing your best-selling products. And the last thing I'll say here is just make sure that you have a backup plan. Explore other fulfillment options to back up your FBA stock so you have greater control during holiday. Now I'll shift the focus to existing inventory and some tips to help you prep for Q4. The first thing that we recommend and perform for our customers is a portfolio analysis of their catalog. This really helps to understand those top performing products based on sales and margins, and then enables you to invest in action accordingly. The second thing you want to do is check that IPI score and ensure it is above the threshold. That IPI score is your inventory performance index, and you should think of it almost like your Amazon credit score. A low IP score can lead to inventory restrictions. You don't want that. Threshold today is at 450. Last year during the pandemic, it was raised to 500. So just make sure you're keeping on top of that. And regularly monitor your inventory performance dashboard to make sure you're getting the best use of that allotted storage space and you're reducing your storage costs. And to that end, last point here is clean up those poor performing inventory items and long-term storage fees. You want to pause low margin items, potentially in-stock items for more than 365 days, because remember, Amazon charges a 4-time storage fee cost during Q4. So you can avoid charges by liquidating poor performing items early and just getting rid of that poor performing stock. You, Andrew.
All right, back to me and tip number 3. So again, having inventory is number one. If you don't have products, you can't sell them. But if you have inventory, but you don't have the deals, you're not going to make too many sales either. So we wanted to focus kind of on this part of the power KPI equation, and all that kind of drives conversion, with the number one variable there being, obviously the price and the promotion. There are a lot of other elements that go into it, but we're going to focus right now on, as we would say, deals, deals, deals. So I don't have to tell anybody listening, we all know competition on Amazon is fierce, and it's only getting more so. It's not going to get any easier. And so, yes, you need availability, you need inventory, but you need the deals as well in order to win those sales. As this cartoon, I love the Mark cartoonist. If anybody doesn't follow him, you should. But it's pretty clear, you can do a lot of really smart things with your brand, with your packaging, with your messaging. But at the end of the day, price is going to win, and especially on Amazon, that is a major driver. So it's key to build those promotional programs, but do it with intelligence and smarts. Look at it by ASIN, by category, and think about what the strategy is for that product. Is it around building awareness? Is it a new launch? Is it liquidation? Is it profit maximization? What are you trying to do so that you can actually think about what kind of deal, what kind of promotion you can afford? And that goes back into everything Danny said, taking into account that inventory will be more expensive, shipping will be more expensive. So what can you actually do to break through during what's going to be, a highly intensive period? So obviously you need those promotions and pricing, you need the inventory, you need the economics. So take that all into account and start that planning again immediately. The next point also is one of those which we all know to be true, which is not only do you need the deals, but you need to be found to be bought on Amazon. If people can't find you, there will be no sales. So now looking at the other half of the equation, it's all around visibility, share of voice. Again, lots to talk about there, limited time today, but there are lots of elements that drive that. And so the one that's most in your control is the paid media component. Advertising on Amazon has now become a necessity. It is core to discoverability. The majority of real estate above the fold and even throughout the entire Amazon experience is more and more becoming ad real estate. We recently ran a pretty robust survey of 1,000 brands. And as you can see, and this was back in January, February, so it's probably higher now, 88% of brands were advertising on Amazon. And of those brands, many of them grow that advertising during the holiday season. Here we had 29% running more advertising during the holiday season, and then another 16% only advertising during the holiday season. So basically, it's all signs point to the fact that it will be expensive and competitive to get that valuable real estate on Amazon. We saw last year cost per click, just looking at sponsored ads, up 29%. You can see here on the Turkey 5, 28%, Prime Day this year, 29%. So you need to be prepared to pay to play. And again, that gets into a lot of planning and budgeting appropriately, but this is really key to success on Amazon today. And if you go kind of a little bit deeper into this, what do we mean by that? We really recommend a full funnel approach to Amazon. Amazon over the last 18 months or so has done a lot to expand its capability across the funnel, from awareness building and interest through consideration and obviously purchase. There's a lot that you can leverage. They're constantly coming out with new bells and whistles, new tools, new ways to enhance what they do. We highly recommend not just leveraging the tried and true sponsored ads platform that pushes that is very powerful to move people through the funnel once they're on Amazon. But we highly recommend, if you haven't already, to start adding in the Amazon DSP to target new to brand prospects, go more upper mid funnel, build out prospecting, all the things you can do to start building out a retargeting strategy. So highly recommended to think full funnel. And also want to point out this last point that you need to be prepared for the fact that there's going to be intense conquesting going on. It happens every day on Amazon, but Amazon advertising is about playing offense and defense, and you need to be prepared to do both. And just kind of a few more points as you kind of begin this planning. Think about where your customers are for each of your different categories or ASINs. in their shopping journey. You know, are you looking lower funnel with the ready to purchase, or are you going a little more upper funnel, new to brand? Are you clear what you want them to do and get the right call to action, especially in your DSP advertising? And then think about the journey you want. Do you want to drive people directly to a product page, or do you envision a brand store experience, a shop and shop experience that can actually share more of a robust brand story and share more items for them to consider and upsell and cross sell? All things that begin thinking about right now, so you can build out the right content. Moving on, make sure you're looking and thinking, you know, strategically across your creative and across your targeting. Lots of capabilities now exist, especially in the Amazon DSP, to go out and target based on lifestyle or you know, different audience attributes. Lots of capabilities to create custom creative, but the dynamic creative that Amazon provides is very powerful. And you need to begin to really believe, are you going very deal centric, or are you going to be thinking a little bit more season theme or general brand message, or all the above? And last 2 points, and then I'll move on. Use this time now to build those retargeting pools. You now have an opportunity to get people engaged with your brand, so you can hopefully come back to them during the holiday season. And the last piece, which everybody will say over and over again, test and learn, test and learn. This is your time right now to test and learn so that you have everything nailed down for the holidays. And now back to Danny.
Okay. So now I'm going to dive into an area of really thinking about Q4 a little bit differently, and how do you build and maintain momentum throughout this holiday season. With Prime Day 21 moving to June of this year, there's a big question. Will Amazon hold another event in October or not? And if not, Q4 holiday is going to be the main event. And brands are going to look to fill that void left by Prime Day not being there in Q4. So as a result, we're anticipating that the digital push will likely set off an earlier holiday season, again, like last year. If we go to the next slide, I'll show you how we're thinking about a multi-phased approach here. So holiday for us is a three-phase plan that starts in November, literally after Halloween. And it runs through the third week in December. The first phase is really a lead-in period where you're going to start to build your campaigns, get them going, drive the relevancy, and start doing your optimizations. And this should be done 2 to 4 weeks before the Turkey 5 period. You want to be testing here, looking at promotions. You want to make sure that you are retail ready. You know, Andrew mentioned it earlier, but you have to get those listings optimized, make sure your ratings and reviews are in place, make sure your content is in place and optimized. And we recommend here offering initial deals, not your major movers, but deals to start moving inventory as people are starting to research. Start drawing them into your portfolio. Phase 2, which is the focal point, is all around the Turkey 5. And here's where your goal is to be visible, as visible as you can be. You've got to break through with compelling offers and advertising. You want to focus on your most attractive discounts and those hero products. And you need to be agile. During this period of time, you need to be reacting to inventory levels, competitors, consumer shifts in behaviors. And you really need to be treating this as like a 24/7 on approach. And then for phase 3, it's really about focused messaging on this last minute gift giving. It's about prioritizing efficiency. It's about liquidating any excess inventory. So you're using continued pricing and promotions to make sure you're clearing that before the end of the year. The goal is to build momentum and maintain that momentum, evolve your messaging, evolve your promotions, and evolve your investment levels, which we're going to get into now. So thinking now from a true advertising standpoint, what do we recommend? There are certain strategies that make sense now aligned with these phases. When you think of your investments, phase 1 is, kind of a slightly increased investment spend versus your evergreen spend. And you're really starting to do prospecting here. It's a time to get those who are starting early research. You're retargeting those people that have been to your product detail pages in the last several weeks. You're re-engaging 2020 holiday shoppers, getting them early in the season before they're ready to start considering other products. At this point, we think OTT and video engagement is a really good way to drive that awareness and engagement at this point. And in sponsored ads, you're doing similar things with category depth. You want to make sure you're showing up in the shelves that people are starting to explore. Now, when we move to the Turkey 5, retargeting becomes the hero. It's all about making sure you're intercepting those people that have been viewing your content. And on the sponsored ad side, there's nothing more important than protecting your brand, owning your brand terms, your product terms. So you're there as consumers are searching for you and as they're in that lower funnel stage. And the other important element here is conquesting, to make sure that you are also intercepting consumers when they're exploring competitor models and ASINs as well. And secondarily, you still want to be showing up in the shelf when people are starting their research, but it's a secondary in this stage. As we move to phase 3, the lead out, it's actually a really important period of time. Last year, our data shows that more than half of holiday shoppers completed their seasonal purchases in the 3 weeks before Christmas. So you want to be there and you want to be very aggressive, but you want to be very efficient here. So engage those last minute shoppers, focus on your brand terms, focus on retargeting, focus on conquesting. And again, make sure you're promoting items you want to liquidate. This is the moment to clear out your inventory. So the last tip we're going to leave you with is probably one of the most important strategically, which is to make sure you're looking at your business holistically. It sounds simple, but it's very, very challenging to do in practice. We dive in here. There's got to be a focus on making sure that all of the levers you have available as a business on Amazon or a brand on Amazon are being pulled in a synergistic way. Advertising, promotions, pricing, organic strategies, inventory strategies, they all have to be cohesive and connected, and you have to be able to understand the impact one has on another. You know, in a recent brand survey that we did, Andrew mentioned it, approximately 1/3 of brands say advertising is their most effective strategy for reaching new customers. Close to 40% of brands say competitive pricing is most effective for driving sales and profits. You know, the question is, how do these decisions affect your product margins, especially when they're being made together? You need to understand your overall P&L across your catalog. What is your per product margin? What are you willing to spend on customer acquisition? And you create your plans accordingly. But it's much easier said than done because in Amazon, it's very complex. All this data sits in different sources. It's impossible to pull it all together, let alone look at it at a SKU level. So, you know, we really have built our business around creating a technology and a source of pulling all of this data into one source and leveraging algorithms and machine learning to help make the smartest decisions across these levers simultaneously. And that's what our technology is about. That's what our team's about. And we believe that as a business, everyone needs to continuously be analyzing and adapting and investing according to this holistic view. Andrew, want to wrap this up?
All right. So with all that, I'm going to try to summarize. So as I said, number one, start planning early. Use this time to test and learn and get all your ducks in a row across all the key variables and levers that are available. The second one is really, anticipate and get proactive on inventory and supply chain issues to the degree you can, right? Easier said than done, but get ready now to mitigate and to come up with kind of a plan B, knowing that supply chains have been an issue in all of 2020 and 2021. Number three is activate those winning kind of, quote unquote, smart promotions and pricing. Think about what you can afford, figure out the economics and come up with those powerful deals, pick and choose your battles. But ultimately the deals are what's going to play a major role in whether or not you can sell through and hit your goals. Four, none of this matters if you can't be found, right? And so you need to think very carefully about building out that integrated DSP sponsored ads set of campaigns that target consumers throughout the funnel and build out those creative campaigns and messaging to make it all happen. Last or next to last, as Danny said, think about it as a multi-phased approach. It's not a one and done. There is a lot you can do in this lead-in period, which can start even earlier, but we at a minimum starting, as Danny said, about 5-6 weeks before the Turkey 5. Stay agile and be prepared to kind of shift as needed. And lastly, taking that holistic view, realizing everything we said all has an impact on each other. And so we're very much a fan and a believer that all these need to row in the same direction. And having both the tools and the technology to be able to pull together content, advertising, pricing, inventory, et cetera, is the key to success. And with that, those are our kind of six points for holiday shopping season to get you ready. And I'll give it back to Danny.
Great. And, we are always excited to work with new brands and retailers to help them achieve their potential on Amazon. So for those attending today's webinar, I'd like to offer a special offer. We have limited spots, but we'd like to extend a 60-day free trial for anyone that's interested in seeing the power of what we can help provide for your business and get you holiday ready. So if you're interested, Andrew will go to the next page. Here are our email addresses. Take these down, take pictures, email us and let us know. And we're happy to connect you with the right people on our team to get that going. And with that, I will hand it back to you, Marissa, to start us off with the Q&A.
Definitely. Well, thank you both so much. What a fantastic presentation. I always think when we are in the summer, how can we be talking about holiday already? It's 90 degrees outside, but it will be here before we know it. So you all offered such great tips on how to be prepared for thinking about holiday and how to implement those strategies. So thank you for those insights. And as you said, let's get right to the Q&A. The first question today comes from John M. in Providence. John asks, you mentioned intense competitor conquesting during the holiday season. What best practices or steps can businesses take to fight back against conquesting efforts? Danny, what do you think?
So, yeah, conquesting is becoming more and more of a challenge. And there's a few things you can do. The first thing is you want to make sure that you are owning your brand terms, most importantly. So you need to make sure you're bidding on your brands and your products so that you are showing up top of search, that you are showing up on that first half of sponsored product ads. You've got to own that space. So that's number one. And number two is, I would say go right back at them. You start buying their terms too. And you play, as Andrew said, there's offense and defense, and you go after them and you start making sure you're showing up on their terms as well, and layer in retargeting. Retargeting is important because these are folks that should be buying your product. They're looking at your content, gotten them all the way to that glance view. Now the key is how do you convert them? So make sure you're going after that low-hanging fruit as well.
All right, thank you. Next question today comes from Matt in Nashville. Matt says, as concerns rise over variants, how much of an impact would a return to more strict pandemic-related restrictions have on Q4 strategies and the way businesses plan for the holiday season? I think this is a great one for both of you. Danny, do you want to start first?
Sure. I think, we've covered a lot of this in today's webinar, which is, what's going to happen if these variants do cause additional retail restrictions is just further acceleration of, Q4 holiday growth on Amazon. If people are going to be, kind of at home using their computer, maybe travel will be restricted again. We're going to see an increase in the categories we saw. It's going to be toys, it's going to be electronics, it's going to be apparel, home. So I think those are some things to start to think about as variants start to play into the equation, which we hope they won't, but they seem to be.
Fingers crossed. Andrew, what do you think?
Well, it's a concern everybody has. And, we saw how this played out already last year, and it had a tremendous impact on e-commerce when, if people are either locked down or just less likely to travel. And so I would say there are a few points we touched on today that only become more intensive. Inventory is more likely to become even more complex if this happens for all the possible reasons where supply chains will be affected. So again, plan early and have contingency. And secondly, I think competition for e-commerce, both pricing and advertising, will only become more intense as well. So in a way, as the variants or anything happens more with COVID, it only makes everything we said kind of that much more important and more reason to get started early.
Yeah, it's a big wild card for this holiday season for sure. Yeah. The next question is around advertising and your thoughts on what may work best. So Andrew, I'll send this one over to you. It's from Margot in Vancouver. Margot asks, what's the best Amazon ad type brands should leverage to have the biggest impact during the upcoming holiday season?
Best ad type. Best is very relative and a little very subjective to some degree. I would say obviously it depends on your business and it depends on your category and the ASINs you're focused on. But as a general rule, there are a few things. First off, as we said, think full funnel, think robust, don't think one ad type. There is no magic button. I think between the sponsored ads, offering, sponsored product, sponsored brand, sponsored display, and then the Amazon DSP, you have a lot at your disposal. So it's a little bit of trying to use them all in unison, and they all have kind of pros and cons. I would say, the data, we have a lot of data on this in terms of what our clients use and what works best for them. And I think that, the data would say sponsored products drives the highest ROAS. It makes sense, right? It's specifically driving you to a product page to buy a specific product. But don't lose track of the fact that the DSP, while it doesn't get all the attribution credit, is really the key for bringing in new to brand and growing incrementality, I think. And so it really depends ultimately what you're trying to achieve. But I would say, think about using them in unison, and then I'll go back to sponsored products plus a DSP is ultimately the answer for most brands.
All right, thank you. Good tips. Next question. Ezra in San Diego asks, how much do you recommend increasing your ad spend during the holiday season? Danny?
Look, this is going to be very bespoke to your business and what your goals are. Are you launching new products or aren't you? What stage is your catalog in? But what we can offer is that anticipate significant increases in CPCs and CPMs. We saw during Prime Day and holiday Q4 in the order of 20 to 30% increases. So you need to anticipate that. And you also need to anticipate that there is a significant increase in overall spend during holiday that your competitors will be, likely doing. So I would say use those two indicators to help figure out your plans. And as I said at the end about looking at your data and understanding your margin structures, I think you have to look at everything in relation to what your products can afford you to invest in, and then figure out your answer. Mm-hmm.
All right, well, thank you. Next question, Allison in Brooklyn asks, if Amazon doesn't run a promotion in October, how should brands go about creating their own seasonal promotions? And what factors do you need to consider in order to reach your target audiences? Danny, you want to take that one also?
I'll kick it off for sure.
Okay.
I think this is one, it's an interesting one. We've been asked this by our clients actually. And if there isn't a kickoff to Q4, what things you can do is you can create your own mini event within Amazon by thinking through some key products that you can put on promotion to start to create some interest. Using social commerce, Amazon Live, Amazon Posts, and some of the other tools that are now available to use to help get your word out. You can invest through the funnel to get the promotions noticed. So that's leveraging, as Andrew said, the DSP, do prospecting, look at those in-market audiences, come up with lifestyle audiences that fit your model, apply then sponsored ads, sponsored brand and sponsored products to continue the message and reinforce those promotions, and use your brand store. If you're a brand and you have your brand store, that's one of the most important tools you probably didn't realize you should be using in a very dynamic promotional way during these tentpole moments. So architect that experience, create consistent messaging, and get your promotions in place.
Great points. Thank you, Danny. We are going to take one more question today. That comes from Nate in St. Louis. Nate asks, Nate says, we've never used the DSP before, but it's on our roadmap. Is there a Q4 or holiday, is Q4 or holiday the right or wrong time to get started? Andrew?
So I think the first point is there's probably never a wrong time, but I would recommend starting again. I think I'm a broken record. Starting soon and using the period between now and holiday to learn and get ready. The DSP is a fantastic tool, as mentioned, for driving, for prospecting and building retargeting pools and bringing people into the Amazon funnel. So highly recommended. I would say, it is a little bit more, takes a little bit more expertise in learning and know-how than the sponsored ads platform. So something that you want to get, you don't want to just jump into at the last minute. But I would highly recommend to plan to use it if it can fit your budget. Obviously, it's an additional budget item, but it can generate a significant return for you. So I would say it's not a wrong time, but I'd recommend again starting now in the fall to fine tune before November and December.
Absolutely. So start early. That was a key theme of today's presentation. Thank you both so much. It was great to be with you. Thank you not only for the great content, but of course for answering those great questions from our audience. We really appreciate it. And before we wrap up today, let me just take a moment to tell you what's happening across eMarketer's media channels. You can register for upcoming live analyst and tech talk webinars at emarketer.com/webinars. Don't forget to tune in on the audio side to our daily podcast called Behind the Numbers, and please do subscribe to all of our newsletters. Keep an eye on your email for the link to today's recording, and please feel free to share that with your colleagues. Thank you all for your time. Thanks again to Danny, Andrew, and the entire team at Feedvisor. We'll see you all on the next Tech Talk, and until then, be healthy, be safe, and take care of each other.